Good morning, viewers. This is Kavita Patel, HOD English Department, Srimati Sadguna CU Arts College for Girls. Today, I am going to continue with what has been done earlier regarding verbs, the various functions of verbs. And for today, the session is to be dealt with verbs, regular as well as irregular verbs. Now, as to connect with what has been done earlier, we will quickly have a look at what you have done in the last session. That was the initial session where you were guided regarding what is a verb, what are the various functions of verbs. So now quickly let's begin with the introduction, that is the term verb, which is to be understood each and every time we begin any session related to verbs. May I just ask for the first slide? This was what was being dealt last time. That is, a verb is a word that tells or asserts something about a person or a thing. Broadly speaking, it indicates action. What a person or thing does, what a person or thing is, what is done to a person or thing. It may sometimes tell about possession too. So now today, the focus is on what are the other functions which the verb performs. So now today the insistence is on that the tenses of verbs express the idea of present, future, past. For that, you need to have a clear-cut idea regarding regular and irregular verbs. May we go to the next slide? This was the point where the last session ended. That was that there are verbs which are even reflective verbs. So today the initial part is this, where I'll be introducing you to what are the reflective verbs in English. As you can read on your screen, there are certain sentences where the subject and the object both refer to the same person. You can see the underlined words. I told myself it would never happen. She talks to herself all the time. Now here you can see the subject itself is the object, and that is what I'm going to start with. Next slide. Shall we go to the next slide, please? I find there is some disturbance. Now in grammar, a reflective verb is a word you can see on the slide. In grammar, a reflective verb is a verb whose subject and the direct object are the same. And that is what you have to find out when you are looking for reflective verbs. Let's go to the next slide. In a wider sense, it refers to any verb form whose grammatical object is a reflective pronoun. Now here you need to understand what is a reflective pronoun. Reflective pronouns are used to show that the actions described by a verb act upon the subject of the verb. That is, the subject and the object are thus the same. Now this is going a bit theoretical, so you need to work out few examples. You need to see how the subject pronouns have a reflective pronoun on the opposite side, and that is how you have to learn them. You can see this chart over here where you have subject pronouns and the reflective pronouns. These are the pronouns which will make you understand this clear, how the subject acts as an object. For example, I, myself, you, yourself, he, himself, she, herself, it itself, we ourselves, you yourselves, they themselves. These pronouns are to be used. That is how you will identify a reflective verb. Let's have an example to be worked out on your own. I wish you yourself try to fill up these blanks so that what you, in few minutes ahead, you heard about the theoretical part. Now this is a practical exercise that will help you understand this topic more in a better manner. For example, the door opens dash when someone comes near it. Here, the door, it. So you have to use a reflective pronoun, its, itself. The door opens itself when someone comes near it. Second, look at your umbrella. You should buy yourself a new one. The third one, there was so much noise, I couldn't make myself heard. I, that is myself. Who taught you Latin? I taught myself. Again, I, myself. Then in the last one you can see, they lost the match and were ashamed of themselves. So that is how these reflective verbs are used. Next slide, please. Those were fill-ups, and here you have some more examples, like the man killed himself. Man, himself. Then one more. She bought herself a new dress. She, herself. Now this is to be noted that sometimes, though the verb is used reflectively, the object is not expressed. The earlier part we did was that the subject and the object are the same, but there are exceptions where the object is not expressed. That is to be understood. It is not mentioned specially. So you have to have a unique way to find out what is expressed. That is what you have to find out. Now you have some examples to work out. Here you have a sentence phrase, the bubble burst. Now here what is to be understood? Bubble itself. Now that is not specified, still it is to be understood. Next one, the guest made merry themselves. Next, please keep quiet, and the implied thing is yourselves. Then you have, with these words, he turned to the door. He, himself. Then you have, the Japanese feed chiefly on rice. That is, themselves. So that was the end for that particular part where I discussed about the reflective verbs, reflective pronouns. And now we come up to the main title of today's session, that is, verbs can be further divided into two types, that is regular verbs and irregular verbs. Now, what is the basic difference you find between regular and irregular verbs? Now let's go to the next slide. The real difference is that they have different endings for their past tense and past participle forms. Now these endings are to be remembered, memorized, by hearted, so that you don't mix up the regular with the irregular. For regular verbs, the past tense ending and past participle ending is always the same. That is, if we just spell it, it is ed, and if we use the sound, that is ed. That is, for example, if you have a verb want, then you have wanted. That is how the endings are different. If we look at the irregular verbs, the past tense ending and the past participle ending is variable. It is not as we find in the regular verbs, so it is necessary to learn them by heart. And that is what here I would like to point out, that this is not a matter of grammar alone. It is more or less connected with vocabulary. So it is very much important that regular verbs are to be looked at in a particular way. You need to memorize them in a particular manner. In the same way, when we talk about irregular verbs, they are variable. Then next, regular verbs form their past tense and past participle by adding, that is, letters E and D, ed. Now here there are some examples. We can have a quick look at them. The base form, as you can see, are the words. Then when they are turned into past tense and the past participle, you can see that the letters E and D are added at the end of it. They are added to the verb root. That is what I call it. That when you memorize, you need to remember what was the last letter, and that is how you can memorize them for better. We can just read out them. Walk, walked, walked. Laugh, laughed, laughed. Paint, painted, painted. And the last one, talked, talked, talked. Here I would like to give a piece of advice that you have to focus on the sound. You need not practically use the sounds as the letters give you. I should interfere here that it is more or less something related with phonetics, that these sounds are to be used here. Let's go to the next slide. Now here are some examples of the irregular verbs where you don't see the ending in the form of the addition of eds letters. Here it is in a different manner, and that is why it requires memorizing them, by hearting them, so that you don't make errors. Again, you have a list over here. You have the base form, the past tense and the past participle. We can just read 2 or 3 here. Sit, sat, sat. Ring, rang, rung. Come, came, come. And that is how the list goes on. Now, to simplify how to remember them, a small division of the irregular verbs has been done here. We distinguish 3 types of irregular verbs based on their characteristics. The first is verbs in which all the 3 forms are the same. Now these are exceptionals. The same way it is required that you remember them in that fashion, and you have to go with the title that here all the 3 forms are the same. The base, the past tense and the past participle. Just look at the examples. Cut, cut, cut. You see that all the 3 forms are the same. Then what is the second type? That is verbs in which 2 of the 3 forms are the same. Here you won't find all the 3 but only 2. Here is again an example to make it more specific. Sit, sat, sat. And the third type it is where verbs in which all 3 forms are different. You will not find any of them similar, but all the 3 are different. You can have an example, that is ring, rang, rung. So this is how you need to categorize them and then memorize them so that you don't jumble up. Now here again a detailed analysis so that visual effects help you understand them more better. Let's take a look at the 3 types of irregular verbs mentioned above. That is, as we divided into 3 types, all the 3 forms are the same. Here is again a chart, makes it more easy to grasp. We can just read last 2 one. Hit, hit, hit. Hurt, hurt, hurt. You find all the 3 forms are the same. Then let's go to the next slide, where again you have examples. Read, read, read. That is set, set, set. Now the two of the forms are the same. Here is a section where you'll have a list of examples showing you that the two of the forms of the verbs are the same. That is the base form, become, became, become, bring, brought, brought. And that is in the rhythm that you have to by heart so that you catch the rhythm as well as the difference you find when it is to be used practically when you yourself form sentences. Then here again you have few more. Buy, bought, bought, come, came, come, dig, dug, dug. You can see that it